Comunidad Europea y impulsados por el Comisionado Europeo de la Dirección Energética en el Transporte. Actualmente desarrolla su actividad en China como director del Europe China Clear Energy Center en Beijing. Benvenuto.
I cannot speak Spanish, sorry. Slides are here. Unfortunately, I cannot speak Spanish. But I know you are all researchers, you are all architects and very familiar with English, so you can understand better. My Spanish could be really awful. Sort of Italian translation, literal translation into Spanish. So, yes. I was introduced as a professor in Italy. In fact, I am. I'm professor since 2003, full professor in technology of architecture. But before 2003, I had, I think, 25 years of professional activity, sort of research professional activity, never purely professional. And I was developing, managing European projects, coordinating European projects, and this was the reason why the Italian Academy, in a way, enrolled me as a professor, just to transfer this experience in working in demonstration projects, working in research projects into academia. What I will talk to you today is sort of broad overview, then I will go specific. So broad overview, because having theory is important, practice is very important too. So I will mix between theory and practice, and theory on sustainable architecture and urban sustainability, practice when I will enter certain demonstration projects I am managing in these days, in this period in Europe. I will not talk of China, although I'm very much involved now in China. As Rafaelina was saying, I'm every month for more than 10 days in China because I'm director of this EU-China Clean Energy Center in Beijing, developing exchange between Europe and China, and actually managing what is called the demo zone, the demo zone project in China, which is a sort of huge activity, compared to which our demonstration projects are really so small. But you know, everything is so big in China. Also demonstration projects are big. So what is my favorite sentence? I start with, finite players play within borders, within the swimming pool. Infinite players play with borders, somehow with the borders of the swimming pool. The rules of a finite game does not change. Do not change, actually. The rules of an infinite game must change. The infinite game has rules that must change. And within an infinite game, there are many, many, many finite games. So what does it mean? It means that we have not to stay in our swimming pool. We have to enlarge the borders, expand. And this is what innovators do, actually. is what you are asked to do as researchers. You are asked to do as architects. Always play with borders and not within. Otherwise, you are just following rules, never contradicting and conflicting with them. We have an environmental bill. This, in fact, is China. And this environmental bill is what we are, in a way, paying now, but the payment is also postponed to next generations. And these waves are the waves of change, in a way, that never changed till, or very few, till some centuries ago, and now the change is so fast, and you are playing with the changement. Every year, 2 years, you feel that you are changing, even jobs. The unsustainable growth, if you think to cut the recent decades into pieces, you have the huge expansion booming in Europe between 50 and 60. You had in Spain a second one recently. Now it's like us, okay. But you won. Unsustainable growth between 50 and 60. There was the anxiety of reconstructing. Everything was allowed. There was no perception of physical limitation. The limits were expanding, no limitation. But in the 70s, what happened here? Sorry. In the 70s, you cannot remember, but you had maybe some books or some reference about the limits to growth. There was a very important research made by MIT that was conditioning many years later the new environmental codes. And there was the perception of the limitation, the limits to growth, that was contradicting the previous decade. Paradoxically, in the 80s, there was again a non-limitation. The limits were expanded again. What for? Because of the artificial intelligence. So, okay, natural resources are limited, but we have the artificial intelligence. We have the orgware, the organization capability, which is absolutely illimited. In the 90s, we are back into a new sustainability era or decade in which we were feeling the environmental sustainability, and the environmental design is becoming a sort of interdisciplinary culture. Before was just part of the environmentalism. Now, in the 90s, is a new profession. In 2000, we had a strong feeling of the insecurity and imminent environmental catastrophe. And again, this is another decade. So we could cut into decades, and those of you who could remember until probably the 90s, but reading the different decades, there were really such steps. You see this diagram is United States compared to China. You feel is the income per year compared to number of people, and there is a sort of presence of China which is like a ghost over the United States, and more expanding over the United States. At the beginning was very flat China in a diagram like this. This is another my favorite sentence with no author except the one who is presenting it. Everyone lives in a city that is designed by others. And we are contributing in designing the city in which others will live. So this is something that is quite interesting for our profession. We are all, every time, ever out of time. We are living in a city that others design, and we are designing cities in which others will live. But there is an important element, the permanence. The permanence. It's not like cars, it's not like objects like this. Building and cities are lasting a lot. 10 to 30 times higher than transport. So when we design a building, when we design a district, I wouldn't say a city, we have to care about permanence, because designing a car is much simpler in terms of responsibility. We have strong responsibility. And designing, we have to think a lot that the building is like a living organism. It's like a biological organism. It's not like just a building inorganic stuff. That it has to breathe, it has to see, it has to, in a way, learn how to behave. So we have to devote attention to the building as a living organism. And let's say the bioclimatic architects do it since many years. You know all these sentences. The natural progression, Mies van der Rohe, less is more. Robert Venturi, less is more. And Schumacher was an incredible book, not an architect. Less is beautiful. Small is beautiful. But there is the Alex Tombazis, that is a Greek, is a colleague. Maybe you know him. Very relevant architect in Europe, in the world, I would say. That he was defining less is beautiful as a synthesis of the concept that you have to create beauty with less elements. And so we need to change. We need to change. This is a diagram also very famous with the GDP per capita in the x-axis and the CO2 emission in the y-axis. And you have countries plotted there. Somehow you can have, you can feel the bubbles. What are the bubbles? Big bubbles, big countries, small bubbles, small countries. But there is a sort of regression, linear one. So the GDP is very proportional to the CO2 emission. It's sort of unavoidable. It looks to be unavoidable. The more you grow, the more the economy is growing, and the more the CO2 emission is important. So how to change these routes? We try to. It's so hard. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. And these are the waves that we were seeing before. the change is rapid and the waves are so rapid. Now it's sort of, we feel like surfing in the wave of change. Just moving from one wave to another. And we do not feel which is the right one, but our fathers, your grandfathers were not the same, not changing profession, not changing word, not changing city, not changing even house. So now we have to move rapidly. Everything has to be to move rapidly. And architecture the same. The city the same. The city is moving rapidly. So what is the meaning of that? Well, just try to fix a bit. When is the best moment to change? Can you guess? Not when you are fed up. Before. When you are, before getting the top. Before getting the top. You have still to have some good benefits. If you feel, no, I can continue this activity because I have some benefit. No, it's better changing before. So you don't lose too much time, and losing time, it's more difficult to change. Anticipating, you anticipate the competition. I remember the sentence was said by a manufacturer of passive systems and solar systems in the 80s when we were developing a demonstration projects always. And he said, okay, we learned to speak a language that nobody speaks. And was so a disaster that it was producing systems, greenhouses, passive systems, solar stuff, but without having the market. Now it's changed. Now we have a number of industries and a lot of market. The green economy is expanding. Yeah, probably is the only economy really in expansion. But there is the concept of sort of extensive sustainability, which is a danger. Because every city, every industry, every manufacturer wants to be, in a way, sustainable. But if you have let's say, green stuff in a building, your building is sustainable. If you have 3 or 4 buildings with some green stuff, you have a sustainable district. And you have, if you have some districts with buildings with green stuff, you have a sustainable city. This is the extensive sustainability, which is a real damage, because sustainability is not that. It's not a sum of green stuffs. What is in my definition of comprehensive sustainability? Actually, in end of 90s, beginning of 2000, I was coordinating quite a big project with those cities, having selected districts to make them, say, sustainable districts, adding green stuffs, we would say, but with a concept behind. And the concept was not just putting only technology, only attention on technology, but thinking about the cooperation among the different parties, stakeholders now we can say. How? I was developing that diagram based on how the city are deciding. The city are deciding top-down, finally, well, top-down. They have to, because they have to decide, otherwise nobody can take decisions in a city. So City administrators, they have to decide. But they have to take into account people, citizens, and they are bottoming up. They are expressing dreams, desires. But there are not only these two forces, top-down, bottom-up. There are also the market forces, which are the supply and the demand. And if you put together the top-down, bottom-up decision-making with another type of decision-making, which is supply and demand, you have that diagram. And in that diagram, what is the green one? Actually, yes, okay, the green one. The green one is the bottom-up action on the demand side. Who is there? The citizen, the associations of citizens, the Greens, for example, or the association of consumers associations. They are there. They are acting bottom-up. They are representing the demand. Who is on the top-down demand side in the blue area? Is the planner of the city, is the city administrator. He has to decide, he has to give rules, he has to pretend respecting rules. But he is playing the game in favor of citizens. They are, in a way, regulating in favor of citizens. And who are playing the top-down supply side game, the yellow game? Those who are deciding top-down, and they are representing a supply. Manufacturers, banks, all those having plans for long time plans. They cannot think for tomorrow. They have to make investments. And they are top-down institutions or top-down players. But they are representing a supply. So they are playing in that area. And finally, who are in that red square? Working bottom-up, representing a supply. I will say all of us, all of you, all of us. Experts, architects, professionals, professors. Why? Because we are playing bottom-up. We cannot decide in place of the city. We cannot decide in place of others. But we do represent a supply of expertise. And so we provide expertise. So what is the meaning of that diagram? That in demonstration projects, if we want to make things happening, we have to play all together. Not only as professionals. We could stay in the red carpet without involving, without making things happening. And we have to work with a mix of those. And this was the reason why with those cities we had a quite that's melting pot of people working together, city administrators, experts, professionals, and even citizens, because we were jumping in the city, making sort of design atelier, making sort of workshops with citizens in order to expand the project. This is a provocation, the continuum of knowledge. Certain colleagues of mine do not agree with that. Why? Because the knowledge is separated by, let's say, academic institutions, and by disciplines, and the disciplines are part of competitions. And so the continuum of knowledge is absolutely important. And no matter maintaining sectoral fields, it will be overwhelmed in time. So I think that there will be a strong movement into, and there is already, into mixing disciplines and having also a lot of innovation by this mix is already ongoing. What next? We must be able to form a culture of values for which the protection of environment becomes a beautiful thing to be done. So, sort of ethic, well, it might be. But we have to consider that in new generation this is already ongoing. Our young children, they have that in mind more than the fathers. We will make it. It is more likely that could make it those who thought it before than others. And this is what I was explaining you before. If this is the wave, thinking before is important. And this is when you have to start a new wave, before getting the maximum. Because then you fail a bit, and you think having made the wrong decision because, oh, no, I'm going down. I took the wrong decision. But you come up before the others. The others are losing time. Design teachers affect the future, a long-term future. Building and land use modifications last several decades and sometimes centuries. And this is the very important thing of the so-called institutes of knowledge. You are here in a summer school. You have teachers. Big responsibility to explain this, the permanence and of building of cities, and for the responsibility for decades. Sometimes we don't think that. We think that just designing a building, okay, it's a nice building, but it lasts. And the big responsibility is also the one that we have to design of another planet in this planet. Today, with these technologies, not with other technologies, we have enough. We have technologies enough. And enough developed, well developed. We do not apply enough of them. It's not just a question of technology and technique. It's a question of having the culture to move on a direction. And now let's be more pragmatic and talk of which are the directions in which we are involved in Europe. And I'm entering a demonstration project or demonstration projects in which we are connected and involved. It's the so-called concerto. Concerto, the name is an Italian name. You could somehow remember or be aware about other important programs of the European Commission, DG Energy, DG Research. There was the Joule program, the Fermi program, all names English or French. Concerto is an Italian name. But it explains what I was explaining to you before. It's a concert between the different players, between different stakeholders, not only experts and not only builders, also citizens and also regulators and administrators and manufacturers too. demonstration projects are lasting a lot. If you enter in demonstration projects, you have to think that you will have your life that for at least 6-7 years will be devoted to a demonstration project, from the beginning to the end, from the first thinking to the last data coming out from monitoring systems. So it's terribly long. And they involve an enormous amount of teams and activities, because are not anymore like in the 80s or 90s single buildings. One building, are districts, are huge stuff. These are examples of Kreuzberg in Hanover, and was a very important demonstration project for the Expo CD 2000, and with many concepts that still now are very important. I mean, they are not over. Permeability of soil, energy efficiency in envelopes, renewable energy, all nearly zero energy in the buildings, a mix of solutions, the community involved, so incredibly innovative in 2000. Having, like in Dublin, in Ireland, concerto holistic is a sort of tautology, is a doubling, elevating power two. Concerto holistic, so not having a concert in an holistic way. And it's a very interesting project because they are not only building with innovative solutions, but they are putting also industries within the process of sustainability of that land, because they are making innovative solutions for industries, as well as for the community, for residents. So this concerto holistic, if you want to enter in their scheme, just click holistic concerto and you will find it. Another interesting concerto project in Denmark, Helsingør, is the Eco City. And if you look at it, there are no gadgets on top. There is no solar, no evident passive systems. So it means that the catalog of tools is not necessarily something special, something different, something very visible. So in a way, the architects took a different role, a better role, incorporating measures which are efficient measures, not necessarily so evident. We can be efficient, we can create very efficient buildings without having them so special. This is my concerto al piano project. Why concerto al piano is concerto al is the city in which it happens. Is AL is Alessandria, is the name of the city, like Torino is TO, okay? And piano because it's a plan. But it's also a concert at piano. So it's a totally Italian name for that. I'm saying that these concerto projects are sort of large tactical projects in the complexity of cities. Why tactical projects? Are not strategic projects. The strategy is what the city wished to become in, let's say, 2050. That could be a strategy for a city. I wish to become a, let's say, cultural city. I wish to become an intelligent city. and you move in that direction. This is a strategy. Tactical projects are districts, ameliorating districts. I'm used to say, like Jaime Lerner, put the finger, you make an acupuncture, and you improve with the acupuncture that district. You feel better. The district feels better. I have changed the acupuncture in ecological puncture. So the ecological puncture is sustainable puncture. And if you make many ecological ecopuncture in your city, you have something, I would say, not really additional, not like the extensive sustainability that I was explaining before. It's a way of playing tactically in the city. And at the base, you have to have a strategy. This again, and you see the logo of Concerto was the logo of the diagram in a way. The logo of Concerto came after the diagram, just to mention. P in concerto al piano. Why I like this? Because I think there are many P's which are very important for us. It's not only project. We create projects, okay, fine. But demonstration projects, large demonstration projects, they have to have a very important process and very careful process. And there is the governance of this process, very important. Of course, the projects, they have to be relevant, good, well done. Products, they have to be the best. Performances, they have to be very good. Promotion, excellent. If you have an excellent process, an excellent project, excellent products, excellent performances, an excellent promotion, you can have an excellent concerto. What, at the end, is the concerto al piano project following? Is following a mix of solution in all these areas: energy, renewable, lighting, material, vegetation, waste, water, mobility. Is trying to couple and match with an area of 3,000 inhabitants south of that city, and playing with that area in various amelioration activities, renovating part of it, building a new eco-village, distributing support for retrofit at the large scale. But these are the solutions. A lot of PV, okay, in the eco-village. We actually made, before starting Concerto al Piano, the so-called photovoltaic village in the same city, and was quite well known in Italy, without support from Europe, without even support from Italy. It was just an independent action, but we created the photovoltaic village. Quite relevant in terms of size also. Private were investing. And so PV for the eco-village, for the elderly building, for electricity, in bikes, for swimming pool, for kindergarten, solar. But the most important action in terms of energy is actually the biomass tree-generation system. So all the settlement is out of fossil. There is no fossil fuel. So it's not really zero energy, because some energy, I mean, we have make it efficient. It's efficient, the building of the eco-village. The buildings of the eco-village are efficient. But what we did is that the extra energy is given by biomass in a 3-generation system, so producing heating, cooling, and electricity in cogeneration. Performance, you see, from the previous end of 70s building to the new buildings, actually retrofitted buildings, the difference is 50%, not that much. But the 50% of consumption is given not anymore by gas, but by biomass, so by renewable energy. Promotion, what is that? Concerto projects are projects in motion. So we have participations, associated cities, and we have 3 Portuguese cities associated with us, and we have also Hungary associated with us. Porto in Portugal is one of the associated cities, and this was one of the visits we made. Actually, in Porto, at the beginning, in Moura, in the picture in between, where there are a lot of investments in photovoltaic installation, while in Porto the rehabilitation of the historic center is really very, very important. What is the policy? Tactical versus strategical. I'm firmly convinced that the action that the European Parliament and the European Commission started with the Covenant of Mayors and the signature that the mayors are doing in presence of Barroso at the European Parliament are not only ceremonies. Cities who are making those signatures, they are involved in planning. A new type of planning, which is planning for 2020, how to reduce by more than 20% the energy efficiency, reduce by more than 20% the CO2 emission, improve by more than 20% the efficiency, increase by more than 20% the penetration of renewables in the city. So it's a new type of planning, and cities are not used to do that. So it was a very important capturing activity by the European Commission. They had to sign, they wanted to sign, but now more than 3,500 cities in Europe is an enormity of cities and municipalities. They are involved in this type of planning, and what it means that they are looking for people able to make those planning, and there are not enough. 3,500 persons knowing how to make a sustainable energy action plan. They are not in Europe. So how can they do? So it's an enormous market. And this is the way in which we could shift from concerto, demonstration, tactical projects to the Covenant of Mayors, the city planning, the strategic planning, and the smart city activity and planning. This process is also part of the Chinese process. Just to tell you, there is now the so-called urbanization platform approved by EU together with China, and EU is planning to promote, is doing now actually, already next month in September, promoting the platform of the Covenant of Mayors into China. And can you imagine how many cities in China will adopt this scheme of the Covenant of Mayors in order to plan differently their emission, So the Smart Cities roadmap, and now I'm entering the last part of my talk, which will be on smart cities. I feel that smart cities helps in making a change from managing projects, what we are doing actually, in some way, we are managing projects, but smart cities should make a shift in managing the change, not only managing projects. And what it could do, it could borrow from Concerto program, lessons learned, in order to manage the complexity at the large scale, at the city scale. Because Smart City is not just making the same demonstration project of Concerto with another name. Otherwise, we have lost. Okay. Simply, we could call it Concerto. So Smart City is another ambition. It's more wider. Actually, with this trend, it already captured a lot of interest from industries, while sustainable architecture was not capturing the interest of industries. Smart cities concept got the interest, a lot of interest from industries. A lot of industries important are very engaged in that. You may know, since 2009, there is this Smart City program was launched by the European Parliament together with the European Commission within the set plan activity. And the idea of the Commission was selecting 25 to 30 cities, enabling them to become smart. This action is not really possible because they should just cut Europe into the good and the bad. They have to select with sort of in a politically correct way. So they are making tenders, call for proposals. Of course, they are selecting. They have already selected. Some new will come. New smart city pretenders will come in the next 10. Call for proposal that is already launched will close well, it's going to be launched. It will close in December. But the ambitious cities will be many, many. So the 3,500 cities in Europe, having signed the Covenant of Mayors, can be interested in becoming smart cities. Few of them will have the brand by the Commission to be so-called smart cities. But they have to demonstrate that they are capable to take a risk. It's not just putting installation somewhere. They have to take the risk. They have to be engaged. They have to create new situations, new economy really, between public and private. This is why the PPP, the public-private partnership, is so important for smart cities. And now I'm explaining what is the diagram that I'm proposing you. What is smart city? A city with more technology, a city with ICT, information communication technology, a city with different mobility, a city with all solutions together, energy, mobility, and no. It's a concept. It's a concept that comes to me from this diagram that is, again, I like so much the orthogonal diagrams. We have the individual and we have the collectivity. So we are playing the role of the individuals, but we have to feel to be part of a community. crossing the two, you have different interests. You have the interest of you as individual, and you have the interest of you as collectivity, or the others. Let's put this way. If you have the plus plus, individual advantage, collectivity advantage. Or you can have the minus plus, plus minus, etc., etc. And what happens if we put this into the smart city concept? The smart city is making our individual advantage together with your collective advantage at the same time. It's a sort of win-win situation. I win, you win. And which are the translations of these concepts for a smart city? Some examples. Telecommuting, yeah, is my advantage. It's an advantage for the collectivity because I do not pollute, so it's an advantage. Alternative work arrangements, yes. Advantage to me, advantage for the collectivity. Biking, yes, also electric biking. Advantage to me, some sport, in a way, even faster somehow. Electric biking is, even more convenient somehow. And for the collectivity, of course, reduced traffic, no pollution. But you can have a list of solutions, a list of technologies or solutions. But you have the rider city. The rider city is the city that allows us to make our individual benefit, individual advantage, without making anything else. High emission cars of the 90s, well, long time ago, but still we have some very polluting, or 2000, early 2000. Conventional individual burners, it's in a way considered to be our individual advantage because I shut off, I start it when I want. It's my freedom. But it's a collective disadvantage. So many burners, so many polluting burners in a way. Also those more efficient. Poorly insulated public buildings for a city is, in a way, it's individual as a city advantage because it's not investing in amelioration. So economy, financially, is safe, but it's a collective disadvantage. The pioneer city is not the smart city, it's pioneer. So it's a different concept. Sometimes we confuse the words, and sometimes also the Commission is looking for pioneering cities and not for smart cities. Are those accepting in a way a certain individual disadvantage in favor of the collectivity? Saints are those. Saints are accepting individual disadvantage in favor of the collectivity. But for a city, what is the individual disadvantage? It's a higher investment. You cannot, let's say, keep your budget safe because you are investing too much. Too much time to recover your investment. Electric solar cars fed by PV in microgrids, for example, yeah. It is in a way smart, but it's pioneer because microgrids are not everywhere. I don't find it. So if I have to do it, I have to invest so much, and I cannot do it in a way. Urban workers, just to say that not only technology, is also the effort. The effort, urban workers for more than 3 kilometers per day, fine. You accept a disadvantage in favor of the collectivity. You are making sport, it's fine. Alternative fuels. You keep a certain disadvantage. Where are alternative fuels? I have a car with alternative fuel. Now, how I can fed it? Where I find the gasoline? So it's a problem. And then there is the worst of the worst. The dangerous city, which could be the stupid city, that is doing the collective disadvantage as well the individual disadvantage of the city. Even biking in cities without bicycle lanes, I mean, is a nice affair, it's a nice activity, biking. But if you do not have the bicycle lanes, it's dangerous. And so you can make the individual disadvantage as well as the collectivity disadvantage. So there are not all stupid things like still having standard city traffic, in which you have the individual disadvantage because it takes you 2 hours to go to work, and the collective disadvantage because the city is polluted. Then you can apply this diagram. And in your smart city, you can have your smart districts, and you can plot one, the energy efficient district, the passive solar district, or the eco district. Why? They could be more, let's say, efficient in terms of individual advantage compared to the eco district, because you invest less for an energy efficient compared to an eco district. But also the advantage of the collectivity is less compared to the eco-village, etc., etc. Biomass district heating is arguable, I mean, you have a neutral situation, but still you burn. For PV village without incentives, still is a bit pioneer. With incentives, moves absolutely in the good part, in the good side. All fuel districts, etc., etc. My end is with my students, working in my projects, demonstration projects as a, let's say, they are contaminated by the demonstration projects. They are they are redesigning those already designed in order to ameliorate them. And I'm discovering how better could have been if designed by students. They are part of the dissemination activity of my projects, because they are visiting projects, they are in a way contaminated. And I like to finish with the sentence of Buckminster Fuller, that he was saying that this is a spaceship Earth, so it's a very small planet that we have to take care of it. Thank you. Thank you. And now I'm ready for your questions or any. I was a bit theoretical, but I was telling theory is part of our job, profession.
About that demonstration project you had shown us without gadgets, do you have information about which systems they had incorporated instead of gadgets?
When I'm using the word gadget, is just because I ate solar collectors on top of roofs not integrated, not designed in an integrated way, defining a sustainable building as a, let's say, solar-equipped building. But of course, we have those. So I do have solar. In a way, in this new eco-village, solar systems are in the flat roof and are flat. We lose 12% of efficiency because compared to the 30%, we lose, but I'm used to say, I'm losing only the 12%. And they are part of the border, working with borders, not within borders. So they are expanding a bit compared to the borders. And they are not, we cannot feel them. Actually, we cannot feel because it's not yet finished, the building. But at the end, we will not feel the solar equipment because it will be integrated. I do like when they are, when we feel those, but they have to be well integrated. They may be integrated in walls, in vertical, but normally they have to, in order to be nice, in my opinion, they have to substitute certain elements, substitute certain type of walls, not just put on top of. So we have solar, we have PV, we have greenhouses. So the ingredients are more or less the same.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Igual las dejamos para mesa redonda.
Va bien.
Bueno, empezamos enseguida.